The flight attendant handed my husband a folded napkin while Vanessa's lipstick was still on his mouth. He opened it. Your wife is sitting 3 rows behind you. She saw everything. Ethan turned around. I was the wife. Our eyes met over 3 rows of strangers. His face lost all color. I didn't cry. I didn't stand up. I didn't give him the scene he was already bracing for. I just put my headphones back on and looked out the window. 5 minutes earlier, I had watched his female best friend ask him a question no married man should need time to answer. Vanessa had already finished 2 glasses of wine. She was leaning against Ethan's shoulder, crying about another failed relationship. Then she looked up at him and said, "If I hadn't moved to New York after college, would you have married me?" Ethan said nothing. That silence was bad enough. Then Vanessa kissed him. His body went stiff for half a second. He could have pulled away. He didn't. A second later, his hand moved to the back of her head. The kiss lasted maybe 10 seconds. Getting there had taken years. The second the plane landed in Los Angeles, Ethan was out of his seat. Claire. Wait. Passengers were opening overhead bins around us. I put my laptop in my bag and stood. He caught my wrist. Please. Just let me explain. I looked down at his hand. Let go. Vanessa was drunk. She kissed me. Let go. He did. Vanessa was standing behind him, her makeup smudged, suddenly looking much less confident than she had 10,000 feet in the air. Claire, I'm sorry, she said. I never meant for this to happen. I never asked him to leave you. I looked at her. You never had to. You just kept asking him to choose you in smaller ways. She stopped talking. Ethan stepped between us. Can we please go home and talk? No. Claire, it was 10 seconds. I picked up my suitcase. The kiss was 10 seconds. Getting to the point where you could kiss her took years. I walked away before he could answer. I didn't go home that night. I checked into an airport hotel, locked the door, and sat on the edge of the bed with my coat still on. My phone started ringing before I had even taken off my shoes. Ethan. Then Ethan again. Then again. I ignored the first 18 calls. On the 19th, my thumb hovered over the answer button. 8 years is a long time. Long enough to make you wonder whether one terrible moment deserves one last conversation. Then I opened my bag and saw the anniversary gift I had bought him. A watch. On the back I had engraved 4 words. 8 years. Still choosing you. I stared at those words until my phone stopped ringing. Then I opened my laptop. That afternoon, before the flight, a company in San Francisco had offered me a job, West Coast Director of Brand Strategy. Better pay. My own team. The kind of role I had stopped applying for years ago because Ethan's career always seemed to need more room than mine. The recruiter had asked for an answer by Monday. I typed 2 words. I accept. Then I emailed the divorce attorney I had spoken to 3 months earlier. Let's move forward. 2 days later, on our 8th wedding anniversary, Ethan received the filing notice. That was when he finally understood I wasn't coming home to fight. I was leaving. That night, Ethan went back to our house alone. I know what happened because months later he told me, and because there were pieces of it I had left without meaning to. The anniversary dinner reservation was still synced to the tablet in our kitchen. At 7:30, the restaurant sent a confirmation notification for a table for 2. He saw the restaurant name and remembered our first date there. Then he opened the hall closet and found the garment bag with the dress I had planned to wear. My side of the bedroom was not empty yet. I had only taken a suitcase, my documents, my laptop, and enough clothes for a week. To Ethan, that looked temporary. He called me again and left a voicemail. Come home. Yell at me. Throw something if you need to. Just come home and let me explain. I listened to it twice. For about 5 minutes, I almost did exactly what he expected. I almost got in the car, drove back, and turned the whole thing into one more argument we could survive. Then I looked at the watch in my bag again. 8 years. Still choosing you. I put it back in the box and turned my phone face down. The next morning, Ethan texted, "I will cut Vanessa off if that is what you want." That message made something in me go cold. If that is what you want. He still thought the problem was that I had failed to give him a specific enough rule. He texted me late that night. "You were already planning this?" I answered. "No. I was making sure I could survive if I ever had to." The truth was, the plane didn't create the problem. It just removed my last excuse to ignore it. Vanessa had been Ethan's best friend since college. 15 years. 7 years longer than I had known him. When we first got married, I liked her. She was funny, loud, and easy to be around. At parties, she would throw an arm around me and joke, "Claire, thank you for marrying him. Ethan was unbearable before you." For a while, I believed the three of us had the kind of mature friendship people brag about having. Then I started noticing something. Whenever Vanessa needed someone, Ethan became available. Her car died? Ethan drove across town. Her boss upset her? Ethan spent an hour on the phone. Another boyfriend left? Ethan went over with wine. It was always something. The first time I finally called it what it was, I was sick in bed with a 103-degree fever. Ethan had my car that night, so I called and asked when he was coming home. He was at Vanessa's apartment. She had just ended another relationship. "Tylenol is on the second shelf," he told me. "Take 2. I'll be home soon." He came home at 2:40 in the morning. The next day I said, "Your relationship with Vanessa makes me uncomfortable." He laughed. "You're not seriously jealous of Vanessa." "This isn't jealousy. I'm asking for boundaries. We've known each other 15 years. And you've been married to me for 8. His face changed. "You never used to be this insecure." That sentence worked on me longer than I want to admit. Because there were no hotel receipts. No explicit messages. No secret second phone. Nothing dramatic enough to prove what I felt. So every time I objected, I became the jealous wife threatening an old friendship. The moment I stopped arguing happened 6 months before the flight. My father was having coronary bypass surgery. Ethan promised he would stay with me at the hospital. Less than an hour before Dad was taken in, Vanessa called. Her ex-boyfriend had gotten engaged. She was crying. Ethan stood up. "Where are you going?" I asked. "I'm going to check on her." I thought he was joking. "My dad is about to have heart surgery." "I know. And you're leaving?" He exhaled like I was making a difficult situation harder. "Claire, your mom is here. The doctors said the odds are good. Vanessa is alone. Vanessa is alone." That was the sentence that changed me. He left. My father was in surgery for almost 6 hours. Ethan never came back. At 10:17 that night, he texted, "How's your dad?" I stared at the message and didn't answer. After that, I stopped trying to win an argument Ethan had already decided I was wrong for having. I stopped asking why Vanessa called so late. I stopped asking when he would be home. I stopped reminding him of our plans when she needed him. Ethan thought I had finally become secure. What I had actually become was prepared. I updated my LinkedIn profile. I called old colleagues. I started taking on strategy projects again. I learned exactly what was in our joint accounts, what was left on the mortgage, and what my life would cost if I had to pay for it alone. I even met with a divorce lawyer once. I didn't file. I wasn't ready. Then I flew to Seattle for the interview that changed everything. Ethan was also in Seattle that week for a vendor meeting. He had told me he would fly back to Los Angeles Friday evening. My original flight was Saturday afternoon, and he had no idea I was interviewing for another job. When the company made the offer, I decided to surprise him. I changed my ticket to Friday. Same route. Same flight. I had booked our favorite restaurant for our anniversary and bought that watch. Then I walked into the gate area and saw him with Vanessa. She wasn't supposed to be part of his business trip. He had never mentioned she was in Seattle. At first, I tried to convince myself they had simply run into each other at the airport. Then I watched Ethan hand Vanessa the coffee he had clearly ordered for her, take her carry-on when boarding was called, and say, "I got us seats together." That was when I understood this was not an airport coincidence. He had known she would be in Seattle. He had coordinated the flight home with her. He had just decided that information was something his wife did not need. Later, Vanessa would insist she had been in Seattle for a client event and that sharing the flight was no big deal. Maybe that part was true. What mattered was that Ethan had made another small choice to hide something because he already knew exactly how it would look. Even then, I almost walked over and let him explain. I almost chose maybe one more time. Maybe she had her own reason for being there. Maybe they had run into each other. Maybe he hadn't told me because he knew I would overreact. Then I sat 3 rows behind them and watched every maybe disappear. At the first meeting with our attorneys, Ethan looked worse than he had on the plane. "You're really moving to San Francisco?" he asked before we even started discussing the house. "Yes." "When did you start looking?" "Months ago." His expression hardened. "Why didn't you tell me?" I almost laughed. "I did." He stared at me. "Last December. Santa Monica. The Italian place near the pier. I told you a recruiter had asked if I'd consider a San Francisco role." Nothing. He did not remember. "Vanessa texted you while I was talking. You picked up your phone and said, 'Whatever you think is best.'" His face went still. He leaned back in his chair and stared at me like I had switched languages halfway through the conversation. "So you were building an exit plan behind my back." I felt my attorney glance at me, but I kept my eyes on Ethan. "I was building a life that did not collapse if you kept choosing someone else." "That is not the same thing." "No. If I had wanted to leave then, I would have filed then." He rubbed both hands over his face. "Tell me what you want me to do." "I will stop talking to Vanessa. I will change my number. We can go to counseling. I will do anything." A year earlier, those words would have been everything I wanted. Now they sounded like another negotiation. "I asked you for boundaries before," I said. "You told me I was insecure." "I was wrong." "You're saying that because I am leaving. Does that make it less true?" I paused. "No. But I am not going to write a list of rules now so you can follow them and call the marriage fixed." His jaw tightened. "So there is nothing I can do? Right now? Sign the papers and respect that I am done arguing." For the first time since the plane, he had no answer. I remembered that dinner because I had sat in my car afterward for 20 minutes, wondering how my husband could say, "Whatever you think is best," about a decision that might move his wife 6 hours away. He didn't remember it at all. That told me more than another argument ever could. The divorce itself was boring, which was exactly how I wanted it. We sold the house. We divided the accounts. We handled retirement funds, furniture, and investments through lawyers. I didn't want his company. I didn't want revenge. I wanted out. But Ethan still believed I would come back. Mia, one of our closest mutual friends, told me later that someone asked him if the divorce was really happening. Ethan said, "Claire is angry. She'll calm down. She doesn't throw away 8 years over one mistake." Mia asked him, "Are you sure she's leaving over one mistake?" He didn't answer. For most of our marriage, I had always been the first person to repair the silence. I sent the first text. I brought the coffee. I said, "Can we stop fighting?" Ethan had mistaken my willingness to repair things for proof that I would never leave. He kept trying to turn my decision into a temporary emotion. He sent flowers to my new office before I had even told most of our friends where I worked. I left them at reception. He emailed me a list of couples therapists and wrote, "Pick anyone. I will show up." I replied, "You should go even if I do not." He sent another message, "I already told Vanessa I need space." I stared at that one for a while before answering. "You are still treating her like the price of getting me back." He called immediately. I let it ring. For the first time, fixing Ethan was not my job either. 2 months after I moved to San Francisco, Vanessa started showing up around him even more. She brought him breakfast. She helped him shop for his new apartment. At a friend's barbecue, she wore one of his college sweatshirts. Someone joked, "Guess you two don't have to pretend anymore." Vanessa smiled instead of correcting him. That night, according to Mia, Ethan left the barbecue early. Vanessa went with him. The next morning, she showed up at his apartment carrying groceries and a framed college photo of the two of them. Ethan was 22 in it, sunburned and laughing, with Vanessa sitting on his shoulders at some beach party. She set it on a shelf in the living room. Ethan took it back down. "What are you doing?" Vanessa asked. "Do not make this place yours." Her face changed. Excuse me. You keep acting like Claire leaving created an opening. Didn't it? He told me later that question was the first time he heard their entire friendship differently. Vanessa crossed her arms. You kissed me too, Ethan. Stop acting like I trapped you. I am not. Then why are you punishing me? I am not punishing you. I am finally admitting I liked this exactly the way it was. She stared at him. I got to go home to a wife who built a life with me, and then answer your calls whenever I wanted to feel needed. You got to have me emotionally available without ever asking me to leave my marriage. We both got to pretend that because we never called it an affair, nobody was being betrayed. Vanessa looked genuinely hurt. I loved you. Maybe you did. And you loved me. Ethan took a long time before answering. I loved what I got to be when I was around you. That answer ended the argument, but not the problem. Vanessa left the groceries on his counter and took the college photo with her. A week later, she finally said what she had apparently been waiting years to say. Maybe what happened on the plane was awful, she told Ethan. But maybe it forced us to stop lying to ourselves. Ethan looked at her. About what? Us. She reached for his hand. We missed our chance 15 years ago. Maybe this is our second chance. Ethan pulled his hand away. There is no us. Vanessa stared at him. Then what was that kiss? He had no answer he liked. That night, he went home and opened years of old messages between them. For the first time, he read them without automatically defending the friendship. Vanessa, if you hadn't married so young, I could have ended up with you. Ethan, you would have ruined my life. Vanessa, Claire keeps you on a short leash. Ethan, she worries too much. Vanessa, you used to like girls like me. Ethan had sent a laughing emoji. At the time, he had called it harmless. Now every message looked like the same door being pushed open an inch at a time. And he had never closed it. Because the truth was uncomfortable. He liked being needed by Vanessa. He liked having a wife who gave him stability and a best friend who made him feel 22 again. He never sat down and planned to cheat on me. He just kept accepting little things he would never have accepted if the roles were reversed. When Vanessa confronted him again, she said, I never asked you to leave Claire. Ethan answered, no. You just kept asking me to choose you in ways small enough that I could pretend they didn't count. And I kept doing it. Vanessa started crying. You're ending 15 years of friendship because of her? No, he said. I'm ending it because I finally admitted it stopped being just friendship a long time ago. That was the last private conversation they had. For weeks after that, some of our mutual friends blamed me anyway. One told Mia I had forced Ethan to throw away a 15-year friendship. Another said marriages survived worse things than a kiss. Mia asked me if I wanted to defend myself. I said no. That was another habit I had to break, believing everyone needed to agree with my reasons before I was allowed to make a decision about my own life. If someone wanted to reduce 8 years of being second place to 10 seconds on a plane, I could not stop them. I didn't know any of this at the time. I was too busy being bad at my new job. My first major client presentation in San Francisco went terribly. Halfway through, the client's VP stopped me and said, "These numbers don't support your recommendation." 12 people looked at me. My face burned. For one ugly second, I wanted to call Ethan afterward the way I always used to. Instead, I went home, ordered Thai food, reopened the deck, and rebuilt the entire argument. The next morning, I walked back into the meeting and fixed it. 3 months later, I landed my first major account for the company. That was enough. I didn't need a montage where I suddenly became perfect, rich, and impossible to hurt. I just needed proof that I could fail without falling apart. There were still nights when being independent felt less empowering and more lonely. One Friday after a 12-hour day, I got home to a silent apartment and found an old voicemail from Ethan in my phone backups. It was from 2 years earlier. He was laughing because I had forgotten my lunch, promising to bring it to my office. For a minute, I missed him so sharply that I had to sit down. Not the man from the plane. Not the man who left my father's hospital room. I missed the version of us that had once been easy. My thumb hovered over his contact. Then I called Mia instead. We ordered takeout, watched a terrible reality show over FaceTime, and by midnight the urge had passed. That mattered too. Leaving did not mean I stopped loving him on command. It meant I stopped treating love as proof that I should stay. For months after I moved, I spoke at a West Coast brand summit. I didn't know Ethan was attending until after my presentation. A coworker walked toward me with him. "Claire, I want you to meet Dash." He stopped. So did I. Someone looked between us. "You two know each other?" Ethan looked at me for a long second. "I used to." The answer hit harder than I expected. Because he was right. He knew the woman who organized her life around his calendar. He knew the woman who kept swallowing discomfort because she was afraid of being called insecure. He did not know the woman standing in front of him now. The awkward part came 30 seconds later when another executive joined us and asked Ethan, "So, how do you know Claire?" Before Ethan could answer, I said, "He is my ex-husband." There was a tiny pause. The kind people make when they immediately realize they have stepped into history. The executive recovered, shook Ethan's hand, and moved on. Ethan gave me a look I could not read. "Ex-husband," he repeated quietly. "That is what you are." I know. But hearing me say it in a room full of people who knew me without knowing him made the divorce real in a way paperwork apparently had not. After the event, he followed me outside. "Claire." I stopped under the hotel awning. Rain was starting to hit the sidewalk. "What?" He looked like he had rehearsed 10 things and forgotten all of them. Finally he asked, "Are you happy?" "I'm getting there." He nodded. Then he said, "I never knew you cared this much about this kind of work." I looked at him. "You didn't know because you stopped asking." He looked down. A moment later, he asked the question he had been carrying for months. "If the plane hadn't happened, would you still have left?" I thought about it. "I don't know." His eyes changed. Just slightly. "Hope." "Maybe I would have given you another chance," I said. "Maybe I would have talked myself out of leaving for another year." His hope disappeared. So when I think about that kiss now, sometimes I'm almost grateful for it. I walked away before he could answer. That was when Ethan finally stopped trying to win me back and started trying to understand what he had done. He went to therapy. At first he went because he still believed therapy was a route back to me. He arrived with a list of things he had already changed. No contact with Vanessa, no excuses, no surprise visits, no asking mutual friends to report on me. His therapist listened and then asked, "What happens if Claire never sees any of this?" Ethan said he did not understand the question. Would you still do the work if there were no audience and no reward? That was the part he had never considered. Months later, he told me his therapist had asked him one question. "If Claire never comes back, do you still want to become a different man?" He said he couldn't answer at first. Because every change he imagined had still been a trade. "I'll cut Vanessa off, then Claire will forgive me. I'll learn to listen, then Claire will come home. I'll be better, then I get my marriage back." It had never occurred to him that change only mattered if he was willing to do it without a reward. Meanwhile, I dated a little. Nothing serious. The important part wasn't finding a better man. It was realizing my future had more than one possible ending. About 11 months after the flight, Mia got married. Ethan and I were both invited. We barely spoke all night. When the reception ended, rain was coming down hard, and he offered to drive me back to my hotel. I almost said no. Then I said yes. We sat in silence until he pulled under the hotel entrance. I reached for the door. "Claire." I stopped. He stared at the steering wheel. "I used to tell myself I never really cheated on you." I said nothing. I kept thinking it was one kiss. 10 seconds. And part of me thought your reaction was too big. He swallowed. I was wrong. Rain moved in silver lines down the windshield. The kiss wasn't the first betrayal. I turned toward him. "The first time you told me Vanessa made you uncomfortable, I protected her. When you were sick, I went to her. When your dad was in surgery, I went to her. Every time you told me where the boundary was, I explained why you shouldn't need one." His voice dropped. "Every time you told me she made you uncomfortable, I protected her feelings from you." A year earlier, those words would have destroyed me. They were exactly what I had spent years trying to make him understand. Now they only made me sad. He looked at me. I didn't start betraying you on that plane. The plane was just the first time I couldn't lie to myself about it anymore. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then he said, I'm not asking you to take me back. Good. A small, tired laugh escaped him. I'm asking if I can take you to dinner sometime. I studied him. You can ask. His eyebrows lifted. Does that mean dash? It means you can ask. I opened the door, then looked back. Ethan? Yeah. I'm very hard to impress now. For the first time that night, he smiled. Good to know. Over the next 6 months, we had dinner sometimes. Nothing dramatic. No surprise ring. No speech that magically erased 8 years of damage. Sometimes Ethan asked if I was free and I said yes. Sometimes I said no. And he learned that no was a complete answer. Then I was assigned to a conference in Tokyo. Ethan happened to have a client meeting there the same week. This time, he didn't just book himself onto my flight and call it a coincidence. He called first. Would it be weird if we took the same flight? I smiled into the phone. A little. Should I book a different one? I let him wait. Then I said no. Same flight is fine. So 18 months after the flight that ended our marriage, Ethan and I boarded another plane together. Not as husband and wife. Not exactly as strangers. We were still figuring out what we were. After takeoff, the flight attendant came by with the drink cart. Coffee or tea? Coffee, Ethan said. Same, I said. She poured 2 cups, then looked between us. Are you two traveling together? Ethan didn't answer. He looked at me. And waited. A year and a half earlier, he had decided what counted as friendship. He had decided which boundaries I was allowed to need. He had decided I would always come back. This time, he let me decide what we were. I looked at him for a few seconds. Then I smiled. We're figuring that out. The flight attendant moved on. Outside the window, the city disappeared beneath the clouds. I still didn't know whether Ethan would ever be my husband again. I didn't need to know yet. Because a second chance doesn't mean going back to the place where you broke. It means starting from zero and seeing whether 2 different people can build something better. And this time, no matter where I went or who I loved, I knew one thing for certain. I would never again love someone by deleting myself from my own life.